Hey, everybody. Welcome back to So You're Ready to Date. We are kicking off season 2. That's so exciting. We've made it through our first season and we're kicking off season 2. And we just want to put a little reminder out there that this is your one-stop shop for all of your dating, love, and relationship advice. So if you need to contact us, please reach out. If you have questions that you want us to talk about this season, let us know. We are here for you and would love to hear from you. But to kick off season 2, we thought it would be a really great idea to maybe go back to the basics. We spent 3 months, 12 episodes, 12 weeks talking about going through those first dates, putting yourself out there, giving it a try. We talked about kind of going through the nerves. Everybody has those first date nerves, really talking yourself up on some of your profiles. And that all takes time, that all takes energy, and that's all very nerve-wracking. And now maybe you've gotten a little bit more comfortable with it. Maybe you're in a groove and you're starting to see some results and you're not as nervous when you're going out on those first dates. So let's go back to the basics. Let's talk about setting up that profile and making sure that we are keeping things updated and really attracting what we want, or even shaking it up to get some different results than maybe we have been getting if we haven't found the right answer yet.
That's always a great suggestion where you're like, yeah, you put a lot of time and thought and effort into your profile. Hopefully, I mean, that's usually what is going to give you the best results is putting in some time. Obviously, you probably have seen several who just like did it in 5 minutes, probably where they were sitting on the toilet or something, and now their profile is out there. But it's always good to give yourself like check-in points where you're like, okay, am I meeting the people who I want to meet? Are my matches kind of reflecting what I want? And if they're not, is it maybe some of the prompts we've chosen? Is it the photos we have up there? So never let it be set in stone. Let it be fluid as you're moving through this whole process. Because maybe you've met some people and you're like, ooh, okay, I know what I don't want, but are we clearly communicating what we do want via our profile?
I think that is a really great point. A lot of times when we start dating, right, we're gonna go out on some first dates, and you're probably gonna date some winners, if you get my drift. Right? Some people that aren't quite matching. And we're not saying anything is wrong with them as people, but they may not match up with what you want. And so you're getting a clearer picture of what you don't want so that you're getting a clearer picture of what you do want. Right? Everything that you don't want is taking you that much closer to what you do want, because you have to know what you don't want in order to really be confident and sure of what you do want. So that is all happening, but what you are attracting is a result of your current state of awareness, your current energy that you're putting out, and your profile. So that check-in point, if you're not getting the results that you want, or results that are satisfactory, or results that you're desiring, taking a step back, looking at the energy that you're putting out and looking at the way that you're presenting yourself in your profile is the first step. That is the very first thing that you can do, is go back through that and look at it with new eyes. You're 3 months into this process. You have a new set of eyes when you're looking at profiles, because you've probably read through hundreds of them at this point. Just saying, I've been there, I've done that. And so you have a new set of eyes when you're looking at profiles. And what attracts you to a profile? What are you looking for in somebody's profile? And is that the type of person you're looking to attract? And does your profile reflect those things?
Right. Have you inadvertently put a list of don'ts when you really wanted to be putting out a list of do's? I saw a TikTok the other day where it was kind of like, going through, why is that on your dating profile? How did that get out there? Where it's literally just a list of, if you have this, if you do this, you better swipe left. And so it becomes like, how do I connect with you if you've told me everything that you don't want, but you're not inviting me in to be like, hey, I'm looking for somebody who likes to hike, to travel, who enjoys fine dining, who wants to go to jazz concerts, whatever it is. Your profile is that first invitation for somebody to get to know you. So this is like capitalize on this thing. Is there a fun, like little 30-second video that you could put up there that really showcases you in action if you play volleyball, or, if you're at a dance class, or it's just you hanging out in the backyard? So finding these ways where not only your personality shines through, but you can invite people into your personal space, in to get to know you, so that you can start to have these conversations. Because how can you start a conversation if, like, okay, I know what he doesn't want, but I don't know what he does want? And that feels like a massive first question. Like, okay, so what are you looking for? I've actually had several conversations kind of start that way in the last few matches I've had, where we kind of, banter back a little bit back and forth. And then it kind of goes straight into, so what are you looking for on here? That's a great way to kind of maybe put that as part of your profile. Say, I'm looking to meet the love of my life, or I'm looking for a casual relationship. Some of the apps have that option where you can note what your dating goals are. But using your profile as a way to say, hey, I'm not, you may not saying I'm not looking for a casual relationship, but saying I'm looking for somebody who wants to be my partner, wants that love and relationship, so that people be like, I'm only looking for a short-term casual thing. I can move on to the next person. So making sure we're very clear in what we're stating out on our profile. Again, we don't need to like dump all of our laundry out there. It doesn't need to be like the be all end all, but finding those things that people can connect with and be like, oh, that qualifies me, as opposed to be like, you can disqualify everybody if you put out a list of the things that you don't want, but you want to invite people in. So how can you do that via whatever you're putting on your profile?
So, interesting story here about the qualifying and disqualifying. When I first met my boyfriend, we met through a dating app, and there was a list of qualifying and disqualifying questions. But what attracted me to his profile was, I want somebody to go out and do stuff with. There was nothing on his profile saying, I don't want this in a person, and I don't want that in a person, and I don't want this in a person. There was none of that. But then we got to talking, and he came out and he said, well, I don't want somebody that's not divorced yet. And that was me. I was not divorced at that point. We were close, but it was not final. We were still going through the process. We had filed. And but we had been apart for maybe about a year at that point. So we had not been together for a good amount of time. And our divorce was friendly, and there was no problems, and we were self-filing. So just a little bit about that. There was no drama in it. But in our conversations, that was something that he said, and I didn't say anything that night. Well, he came over a few nights later to pick me up, and we were going to go out and do stuff. And I took that deep breath and said, okay, I have something that I have to tell you. And I said, maybe you want to sit down for a second. And I tell you, he tells this story now. He's like, oh boy, there's deer in the headlights look. And he sat down, and I said, okay, you said this last week, but I want you to know that my divorce is not final. So I get it if you don't want to continue this. But he didn't put that in his initial profile. And I think that was a good thing, because had he put that in his initial profile, we wouldn't be together. We're 5 years in at this point in time. So it's a matter of putting out there what you want in a person and letting the situation dictate that, because he didn't want somebody that was still married, but I was in the end processes of it, and I would have disqualified myself from a great relationship had he put that in there and talked about what he didn't want instead of what he did want.
It's all about that space for nuance, right? Where it's like, yes, I don't necessarily want somebody who's married, but there's a situation for that where it's like, okay, yes, technically I am still married, but we're in the process. It's almost done. It's almost final. So, like you said, when you put some of those like very strong, bold, I don't want this, you can disqualify people who might be a perfect match, because you're not leaving room for people to be human, for people and situations to be not necessarily typical. And that's what we want more of. We want to be able to be like, okay, I really like you, but there is room for your life to have like life experiences. And so that's a great way to kind of phrase it, to put it, where you're like, okay, I would have disqualified myself had he said that, but knowing that we could have this conversation and explain what my situation is, sometimes we need to have that space so that we can maybe invite that right relationship in.
Exactly. And I think it's also a matter of when you discover what you don't want. Again, the other hand is you are figuring out what you do want. I want less of this and I want more of this. So if you know what you want more of, put what you want more of on your profile and don't focus on what you want less of at all anyway. So thinking about the way that the universe works and the law of attraction, we get what we pay attention to. We get what we focus on. So if you're focused on what you don't want, you're much more likely to get a whole big old basket of what you don't want, a whole steaming pile of exactly what you're trying to avoid.
Well, and sometimes it feels like so much of the time you go through these profiles and it's just like a list of the last person who hurt them. So, I mean, it's honestly, if you're just fresh out of something, give yourself time to process the ending of a relationship before you're right back on Tinder trying to find the next relationship. Give yourself time to process that, because sometimes those come off, men and women alike, just bitter because they're like, well, I don't want this. And like, I get it. You were hurt before, but you're not giving the new person that benefit of the doubt to show that they're not just like whatever happened to you before.
And I want to flip that over to the other side. So you see Mr. or Mrs. Beautiful, perfect, right in front of you, right? Looking at that physical appearance. You go through their profile and there's a lot of things that align with what you want, but suddenly you see all the red flags of all the things that they don't. And you hear that bitterness that you're talking about. And that for me is a red flag. It's not somebody that I want to connect with. So not only am I disqualifying myself if I'm looking at somebody else, or if somebody's looking at my profile, are they disqualifying themselves? But when I'm looking at somebody else's profile, I'm disqualifying them based on those negative comments on their relationship. Because number one, I don't want that negativity in my life. And number two, I recognize that that person is not open to a relationship. They're not open to trust, and they're not open to building a solid foundation, because they've still got a lot of hurt and personal work that they need to do to be in a space that they're going to be ready to date.
Right. And just to clarify, nobody is expected to be 100% healed, because we never are. But if you're at least making that effort towards healing, towards doing the work, towards getting to that space of being open and honest and wanting to love again, that's, I think, the most that you could ask of anybody. But if you're not actively attempting to do anything towards that end of the spectrum, then yeah, it's going to be, I think, you're going to attract more of those people who are going to lie to you, who are going to cheat on you, who are going to do everything that you don't want. Because like Angie said, that's why I stopped dating for a little bit this summer, because I was attracting just this like crap attitude that I had about men and dating in the first place. And that's where all of the douchebags were coming from. And I was talking to my therapist about it. I'm like, and I had this light bulb moment where I'm like, I am just attracting everything that I said I did not want, because it was all about this place of don't, which always feels more like lack to me than anything else. It's like this negative energy about it. When I'm working on flipping it to more of that positive of sitting in that space of how do I want to feel in that relationship? What do I want them to feel in this relationship? And coming back to that more positive space, I know at some point I'll start to attract the positive men that I want, but that can be the biggest like red flag to yourself, being like, man, all of these dates seem to be kind of similar and I'm not really clicking and vibing with any of them. Then we need to stop and think, what am I putting out there, whether it's just our energy, whether it's on our profile, that is being reflected back to me, whether I was expecting that or not.
Yes, what we put out is always reflected back to us. And sometimes I forget that. So it's always good to have that reminder smack me in the face and say, oh, yeah, that's what I've been putting out lately. Maybe I need to do something about that.
And this is not to say that you have to like constantly keep reinventing your profile, but this is just for you to pause and say, am I actually getting what I want? Has this process, one, been fun? Because we always want this to be fun for you. Because if it's not, nobody needs another job. Nobody needs another chore. And dating should not be a chore that you feel like you have to do on your list. So, again, it's about checking in with yourself, letting yourself change and grow as your experiences change you and help you grow. So, always being evaluating, is this working for me? If it's not, taking that time to go back and look and say, how can I make changes and adjustments so that this is giving me the best possible outcome?
I think that is a great point. And if you're not sure about how you're feeling about the dating process, I think when you talk about it, if you listen to the language that you use, pay attention to yourself. Are you saying, I get to? Are you saying, I want to? Are you saying, I'm going to? Or are you saying, oh, I really should, or I have to, or I made plans, but I'd rather stay home. How are you feeling about it? Are you putting the right energy out there? Are you in the right space for that? And if you're not saying I get to, if you're not getting pumped up about it, if you're not excited about it, then it may be time to sit back and say, okay, what do I need to change to make this fun again? Because it is all about having fun.
It's funny you say that because I kept repeating these stories of like the string of not great dates I've had. And I had to at some point stop myself because while I think it was like funny and joking and all of that stuff, it kind of felt like it kept me stuck in that place of almost being like a victim to all of the like not great stuff and like reinforcing this little seed in the back of my head that men were trash and dating was garbage. And so that was some language that I very clearly had to stop saying. Like, if somebody asked me, I was happy to share the stories, but to myself and my own self talk, I really had to like put the like stop to saying, like, we're not going to keep rehashing. Yes, you had some bad experiences. That hasn't been the totality of your experience. So stop kind of sticking yourself in this place of like victimhood in this kind of bizarre, strange little way and start stepping back into that place of, if I want something different, I have to start acting and talking in a different way. And so changing my own internal language about how I was talking about past dating experiences and what I hope for future dating experiences is starting to be a little bit of a game changer because it's starting to flip that switch just a little bit to mean like, okay, this could be kind of fun. I want to get back to that place.
I love that story because oftentimes when you talk to people who are dating or have been dating for a while or haven't been dating for some reason, the answer is always that men are bad, women are bad. They always attract the wrong people. There's this story there that is all about the, I won't say victim experience, but I'm not real sure what word I would use instead of that, but how it is a bad experience and how they're not going to find the right person. And so you gave a really great concrete example of kind of how to flip that script and take it back and give that a fresh look, give it a fresh start, creating a new mantra, starting a different story so that you can move forward and have fun in the dating process.
Right. Because ultimately, again, this should be fun. You're wanting to find that happy ever after, hopefully, for yourself. And very rarely is it going to come because you were talking trash about somebody. I don't know. It could happen, but that's usually not how you're going to get the best version of somebody that you want to be.
Right. Or not the best version of yourself either, like
Exactly.
the whole situation. But we got a little off topic there. I don't mind. I actually think that that was really great stuff and great content. The intent of this episode, very specifically, was kind of to talk about refreshing your dating profiles. Maybe we'll run through those quick tips that we intended to talk about at the beginning, and leave the rest of the content in because it was so great. But we wanted to touch base and maybe talk about updating your photos. We're changing seasons. We're ending summer, getting into fall. We're going to be going into the holidays. Are your pictures all summer pictures? Do you maybe have some winter activities that you like to do, or things that show that fall and winter is a good time to be dating you? What can you do to update some of those photos?
Bust out those pumpkin spice latte photos, right?
Cheers.
That's a really great idea to like start to move your pictures with the seasons, because everything you do isn't, you don't do the same things year round. I think most of us have things that are specifically for certain seasons. So yeah, now is the time to start pulling in those different photos, and to also use that maybe as a way to refresh your prompts. Take time, go back through, read all of the ones that every app has, and pick a couple of new ones. Put some new information out there, because if you're probably have seen a couple of repeats come across your like scrolling screen. So I'm sure you have probably popped up on somebody's, scroll through it several times. So freshening it up will maybe bring you eyes that passed you by before, but now they're like, oh, something is different. I need to check this out again.
Yes. And changing your prompts can be a good invitation to let people get to know a different side of you. There's still a lot of mystique there. It's just online dating, but also you're opening yourself up a little bit more and giving them a little bit more of a tidbit, or giving people a little bit more different information that can maybe help bridge some gaps, or motivate somebody who might have been on the fence to swipe yes.
And also a great opportunity to switch up your first questions. If you're the one messaging somebody or you're answering back, take this as an opportunity to, maybe switch up some of the questions that you ask. I mean, I technically have kept with like 2 or 3 that are pretty standard that I start the conversations with, but at a certain point, like I get bored of them. So now is a great opportunity, as we're going into a new season. You can be, find some funny and interesting ways that you either get to know them, or again, pulling from their profile as best you can to see if there's something more that they can expound on to get that ball of a conversation rolling.
Absolutely. I think those are some great tips for us to update those profiles and take that refresh and take that step back and have fun. And with that, we'll kind of wrap up this episode here, but come back next week, because like we just mentioned, we're changing the seasons, getting into that fall, those pumpkin spice lattes. Who doesn't love a good pumpkin spice? And we'll be talking about dating through the holidays and what that looks like, and how you can navigate that rocky terrain.
Because that's not a minefield at all. Right? Because families and friends and holidays don't cause extra stress, right?
None at all. So be sure to come back next week, because you absolutely will not want to miss that episode.
So as always, email is soyoureadytodate@gmail.com. We would love to have your comments, suggestions, questions, anything like that. Hit us up to make sure that, again, we're putting out episodes for things that you want to hear. And as always, we appreciate you joining us.
And we will see you next week. Bye.